I'm ready. Okay. And guys, let me know if you can see my screen all right. If someone can just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen.
Yes, Kamal, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. Guys, thank you so much for joining, and I will just give a couple of more minutes, just 2 more minutes to go, because I know that people are still trying to join, and then we do have good participants. We have 33 participants and a few more in lobby waiting, so let's give them some more time and then we can start, if that is okay with you all. We'll just give me an indication when you want me to start, okay? Whenever you're ready, whenever you think that we have enough, participants in, just let me know. Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning to the new joiners. All right. Veer, is the recording, have you started the recording? I can then start the session. I think Veer is on mute. Veer, can you just give me some indication? Okay. I think Veer is busy admitting everyone from the lobby into the room. I can see Lot still in our waiting room. But I think we can start. Ashutosh, is that all right for us to start?
Yeah, Kamal, you can start.
Okay, perfect. And guys, again, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those who are in Singapore. I know a lot of joining from Singapore and Malaysia and other regions here, and from those who are from India, a very good morning. So, how should we start? Let's give you a quick introduction before we start with talking about our topic and meeting our guest. I think I'll give a very quick introduction of who we are. I know that some of you might have heard this so many times, right? I mean, I have done this quite a number of times before, and you know about Core HRIR group, but for the benefit of those who has joined today, I think a quick introduction is required so that they know who we are. So Core HRIR is actually a non-profit group of HR experts or professionals. We started a couple of years ago, by some HR enthusiasts and like-minded people. And our sole purpose of forming this group was only learning and sharing and bringing the experts and thought leaders to the forum. And that's exactly what we are doing today. And ever since we have started, our group has grown to 10,000 professionals now, which is quite a huge number. And we have reached out and nurtured around 25,000 professionals around the globe. So the reason I'm telling you all this, that if you are enthusiastic, if you have an enthusiasm for learning and sharing, please join our group, right? And I'm Kamal Patania, and I'm based in Singapore. And my role today is as a connector. And that's what I do. I connect you with experts, thought leaders, and bring new topics on the table. And that's what we are going to do today. Okay. A very quick look at our team, because see, it's not that easy to bring, such kind of event. There's a lot of things that happens behind the scene. And I really, I'm lucky that I'm working with a team of good people here who are very enthusiastic. They're passionate about getting to learn and getting into the learning and sharing. And thanks to all of our team members here who has made this event possible. Just a quick glimpses on what we used to do. Sorry, this is pre-COVID. Don't think that we are all gathering in the COVID time. No, we are not doing that. We are doing virtual sessions. But we used to do a lot of these kind of sessions, before COVID. So, and we are hoping that we will continue to do so, once the restrictions are eased out. So all the participants from Singapore, please watch out. We will be bringing such sessions and in person and sessions very soon. We will be conducting and reaching out to you, and that will give us an opportunity to meet as well. Just waiting for some of the restrictions to be eased out. Okay. So a few words before we start. So please be interactive. It's a very interactive session. And I would say be bold in sharing your views. Nobody is judging you. So this is a forum where you can just say nothing is right, nothing is wrong. It's your forum. You can talk. But since we have a huge audience here, it's best that if you can drop a note in the chat and say that if you want to get some questions, and then we can open up the line. So at least we know who's waiting for the next question. So that's the only thing we request you for. Otherwise, please be interactive. And I would say stay tuned for some very interesting discoveries today during the session. So once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. I know it's a weekend and it's not easy to take out the time during the weekend. So thank you so much for taking your time out. Okay, now you must be thinking and very curious that what Kamal keeps on talking and she's not telling what's the purpose of today's session. So I would like to tell you that today we are going to talk all about you. We are going to talk about your profession, your aspiration, and your interest, right? So that is what our topic is for today, and this is what we are going to talk. So tell me one thing. Does this question often comes to your mind that, what do I do if my job is different from my interest? Because it comes to my mind a lot of time. And I'm sure, you might be thinking on that as well. Now, come on, if I love to cook and if I get a job as a chef, of course, that's the best thing that can happen. But it doesn't happen all the time. And we all pursue our interests outside of our job. And you might have seen this in the last 2 years as a pandemic, that people are coming out more and more to pursue their interest and their passion outside their jobs. And they are trying to reevaluate their lives and their careers, during last 2 years. And I'm sure that you know what's happening around. Now, I would say that there are two thought processes here. One is that a lot of people are leaving their jobs and they are starting their own business to as per their interest. That's one thought process. And they always think that how can I find a job that I'm passionate about? But there's another thought process that says that, okay, instead of looking for that perfect job, how can my career be the conduit to my passion? Or how can my job can steer me towards my passion and my interest? So how can you have a perfect balance of both? So of course, that's a second mindset that we are having. So that's why we are here to deliberate on some of these questions and see if there is any connection between profession, interest, and passion, right? And how they can be connected in a powerful way. So that's what we are going to talk about today. Now, I know that it's not easy, how do we talk about it? I mean, we can't just go into the question answers and, start discussing. So why don't we do one thing, that I give you some visuals, a story, right? And I'm so delighted that our guest today, Colonel Ashutosh Kale, has actually graciously accepted to be that story for us. And before I go into, before we hear from Ashutosh, just a very quick introduction about him. So when I met Ashutosh recently, I was very intrigued, by his unique journey. He went through a lot of professional transitions. He started his career, from the prestigious Indian Army. He was associated with the United Nations. He entered the corporate world and he held a lot of leadership positions there as well. And all along his journey, he kept his aspiration of becoming a writer alive. And now he is a successful author. So you can see that he connected all the dots of profession, interest, and passion very well. And that's the reason why we have invited him on this forum today. So with that note, a very warm welcome, Ashutosh, to our Learning Weekend Forum. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Kamal.
Great. How are you feeling today, Ashutosh, about joining our learning and sharing weekend? Yeah.
I'm feeling overawed because I'm sitting in this galaxy of highly evolved and people who've already reached um, their milestones in life. And I think I'm just about starting. So I feel like a young rookie in front of a huge panel sitting out there.
No. I think we were very inspired by your journey, and see, we are all trying to find our passion, find our aspirations, right, while juggling with our jobs. And you have done that, perfectly. So that's a good story for us. Sorry for calling you a story, but that's what it's an inspiration. It's a
But
story, right? Yeah.
Kamal, this nirvanic moment did not come just like that. I must confess that like they say that youth is wasted on the young. So it's this realization came a little later in life, and we all evolve. I also evolve like everyone of us do all the time. And my evolutions and my passions were different at a particular point of time. And I had to recognize that as I evolve, my passions have kept changing. But the evolution and the process has been that I've been able to latch on to those passions. So when I was young, like you've brought out earlier, I loved horses. I was a polo player, and I used to captain the Indian Army polo team. I used to take part in the National Equestrian Championships. And I wanted to devote my life being a polo player. I never wanted to do anything else in life. So I wanted to be a cavalry officer and playing polo and doing show jumping all my life. But then the army kind of brings you down and brings you to Mother Earth, with a sudden thud. And I got commissioned into the infantry. So when I got out of that glamour role and I was an infantry officer, it kind of got a little weird for a little while, and I was a little disappointed with life. But then my passion, I realized, is adventure. My passion is action. My passion is, being at the edge of the seat all the time. And I think ultimately the uniform kind of grew into me. And my profession for a certain number of years became my passion, or my passion became my profession. So I did what I had to, being an infantry officer, being in Kashmir and the Pir Panjal and Punch and Rajouri and the Siachen Glacier and the desert exercises in the heats of Rajasthan, Suratgarh, Anupgarh, did all that. And gradually, there was a time when I used to write. I started writing, and I realized that, I enjoy it. So perhaps somewhere I had read, and that holds true even today, that, you need to hear your inner calling, and you need to hear your voice, the inner voice, which tells you what you are enjoying and what is exciting you. That is actually your path, and that is actually your calling, and that is actually your passion. So should you stride on that path and you hear and you have the guts and the courage to take up those things, they are not random things. For others, they might be random, but actually they are not random things. And I think the universe somehow kind of brings that message to you constantly. But we in our survivor mode kind of push it away all the time, and it takes you away from your passion. But you need to claw back at it every time after you identified your passion, and you need to get back to it every time survival takes you away from it.
Absolutely.
So
And
that's
when
how
we
you
are
need
going,
to identify your passions.
absolutely. And when we are going through transitions, it becomes difficult because then you are defocused, right? I mean, and look at your transition. You were in Indian Army, and then you came to the corporate world, right? So that was a huge transition. So there can be distractions that can happen, and that distraction can happen in our lives as well when we are transitioning from one to other. So staying focused to the passion and and holding on to it, I think that can be something which we all have to deliberately do it. So did you deliberately or kind of meticulously planned something that, okay, this is something I wanted and I want to hold on to it no matter what transitions I go through?
No, like I said, I did not plan it. It came through a process of evolution and growth. But you always need to learn from the other fool stories. And I think you need to learn from my story, because I stumbled upon it. But having got there and been there now and a little wiser now after I stumbled over a couple of times, I do feel that, like Dalai Lama said, I think all of us think we have time. And that's such a deep statement of his.
Yeah.
Do we really have time?
Mm.
How many years do we have left, and how many years of shelf life do we have? When are we going to follow our paths? When are we going to follow our passions? When are we going to follow our purposes? I mean, it is time. It is now that we need to follow our path and our purpose in life. If not now, then when? How long can we just keep surviving and fighting for survival? So one needs to have that courage. And I was reading this autobiography just 3 days back and wondering, Alexander at 17 conquered half of the world, and that these kind of great things don't happen by just being in a comfort zone. He strode across from Greece and came all the way across the Hindu Kush and then came all the way into India. So you need to get out of your comfort zones to achieve something that you are passionate about. And I also think that a lot of people, and that was one of your questions, where do you want to do a job which gives you your passion, or should you follow your passion and do a job? So there's a very interesting fact that it's very difficult to find a job which will align to your passion. It's easier to make your passion your job. It's far easier to do that. So if you can make passion your job, because today, another point that you spoke about was stress. If you're doing something that you're not connected with or you don't care about, then that gives you stress. But something that you love will is identified as passion.
Absolutely.
So whether you have people who give up corporate careers and open a coffee shop, like in Manali. I'm sitting in Manali, by the way, presently. I've got a lovely view in front of me. It's snowing. So people who open up I met a gentleman yesterday who had a quaint little cafe up in the hills, and he had given up his job in London, and he's come down here and he's settled here, and he's making lovely coffee and croissants and following his passion. So it's never too late. It's never too late.
No, absolutely. And that's why there's nothing wrong and right in that, whether you are able to follow your passion while doing your work, because sometimes it's not always possible that, we can open up a cafe, for example, right? It's not possible for everyone.
Very romantic,
to do
but
that.
yeah, not always possible.
It's not possible. I looking at the pictures, I'm very intrigued that, you have been associated with United Nations, right?
Yes.
When we think about United Nations, we always think about war and peace, and also we really have, this is not every day we meet someone who has been associated with that and have run some operations. So can you please just tell us a little bit about that? I'm very curious to know about
Yeah, so the call for the United Nations, India is, by the way, one of the leading countries in the world which contributes troops to United Nations. And we are a forerunner in that. So I was selected to lead a contingent of about 1,800 troops into the Horn of Africa, in Ethiopia and Eritrea. There was a fight there, and this is along the Red Sea. And there was a genocide, and then the United Nations stepped in there, and they created a buffer zone. It was like 2 boxers on either side, and the United Nations was the referee which went in there and they separated the 2 armies. So my regiment and me went in, and we were like referees inside this buffer zone. It was a 25-kilometer long buffer zone stretching across the country. And we were trying to keep 2 armies at bay, fighting from each other. And they could have fought and we would have been squashed in between. It was very interesting because apart from making sure that they don't fight, there was a lot of nation building efforts which were on. There was a lot of NGOs from Oxfam from UK was there. There was the Red Cross, There were all these NGOs which were working there. There was a lot of NGOs from Africa itself, from Addis Ababa. There were NGOs working, and it was a very heady experience. I was the senior most Indian official in Eritrea, so we were straddling two countries, and there was a small Indian community there, and I was supposed to evacuate them should something happen like it is happening today in Ukraine. So yeah, it was extremely exciting. It was extremely heady. I was working in a multinational force where we had that's my force commander there from Jordan.
Yeah.
He was a general. My deputy force commander was from Bangladesh. There was a guy from Cyprus who was heading the mission. There's a guy from Australia. We had 40 nationalities working over there from the US. And it was a great experience working with 40 nationalities, which eventually went into about 70. And how we all fitted in. There were civilians, there were army. One thing about the army is whatever uniform you might wear, we realize that we are still the same. We build the same, we think similarly. So we could be coming from different armies and wearing different uniform, and having different flags on our chest. But ultimately, you do gel in, and it was a great awakening to me of how an organization which is so divergent and so diverse can actually work so beautifully. And that's what happened. And that's where also the seeds of this book came in. Because my regiment was in Ethiopia in 1868, part of this campaign. But I really didn't have any information about this. It was always a trigger in my mind. So when I went there, I was in the same places. My camps which were there were virtually in the same places where the campaigning force had established camps. And that was so exciting and intriguing. And it was so bizarre. So I went around checking on things, wrecking things, visiting places whenever I got time, and making my notes. So that's how the book came.
So you have to be very inquisitive, to become a writer, because you have to put a lot of research behind it. But I have a question here, Ashutosh. I mean, you have, you were serving the nation. You led the troops. You have served with the United Nations. But then, what was the driving force? To come to the
Can you just speak a little louder, please?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, the network here is...
Okay. No, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
No, so my question is that, of course, we will talk about your book in a little while. But what we would like to know right now is that you are at a very respectable position, right? Serving the nation, United Nations, you are associated with. So what was your driving force behind joining the corporate world? Because it's pulled apart, right? I mean, corporate life, we all know, and how different it is from what you were. So what was your drive behind it?
Of stepping out of the army?
Yes, exactly. And coming to the not stepping out of the army, coming to the corporate world.
So, I come from a family which has had 3 generations in the army. So it's been a legacy. And much to the discomfort of my family and to my wife immediately, I have this bug which keeps biting me every time I get into too much of a comfort zone. Every time I get cushioned and I get comfortable in life, this bug bites me, and it bites me really hard. So I have always loved uncertainty. And the more the uncertainty, the greater the excitement, the greater is the adventure. So even while in the army, my best years were actually when I was in Kashmir and I was into operations. We didn't know whether we'd be coming back alive by the evening.
I wanted to
Guys, can you mute? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I think, yes, we can hear you. There was someone who
So,
joined and was yeah.
That was always that kind of drove me. And it was the passion that, that kind of created that, and those challenges. So at a point of time in the army, when I realized that I had been there, done that, I would have achieved greater rank And for me, after being at a colonel's level, after having done all my basic courses and having done well and represented the country, I was really poised to take on higher roles. It would have been a very comfortable life. Okay, but I don't think it would have been a very challenging life. I would have risen in rank. I would have done my bit. My challenging years were behind me. The excitement was behind me. So I wanted to challenge myself and push the envelope and see how far it goes. So that's when I decided to step out, much to the discomfort of everyone around me, who said that this is the time when you need to reap your dividends. Everything that you worked for 23 years, it's right there in front of you to now claim it for what you have. And that's when I decided to step out. And I was at ground zero when I was stepping out of a job after 23 years in which you really excelled, and you need to start all over again at ground zero. It's difficult. It's a challenge not only for you, but for the family and for everyone else. But I decided to jump off the cliff, and there was no other way. I had to fly, otherwise I would have hit stones below. So I had to fly, and I flew, and I think I did a decent job of it. And then I used to write, like I said earlier, I used to write articles when I was in the army, but those articles were very flat. They were essays and articles which did not have depth. And there was always this thing in me that I wanted to write. It was one of my bucket list. So I decided to actually start writing. And a few years into the corporate world, I realized that I was drifting, and I said, this is not what I came here for. I came here for challenges, and I came here to do something that I wanted.
We all feel like that in corporate world, Ashutosh.
You start drifting. That's why I said you need to claw back. You need to kind of sit back and take these momentary pauses in life and take a stock of the situation and see where you're going. You just don't let it go by very fast. Otherwise, life will just go by.
Absolutely. Can we pause here and ask if our audience, if they want to first, if they ask any question to you at this point, or I'm sure that some of you might have some interesting transitions as well, because we all go through various transitions. So, you have gone through from army to corporate life. It was like poles apart. Anyone from our audience who had gone through any such transitions? Or anyone who has joined army from corporate life. That was just a long shot. But anyone else who would like to share their transitions at this point? Or ask any questions? Come on, guys, let's be interactive.
I have a question, if I can go forward.
Yes.
This is Vinos from Singapore.
Yes, Vinos.
Thank you for the inspiration. It's really great to hear your story, Colonel. You touched upon some of the mental models you formed as you grew. One is the first principle of evolution and how you embrace that. Are there any other models you have developed that has helped you pursue your personal passion while you had busy work commitments? Where I'm coming from is, I guess, being conscious of your personal passions and importance of pursuing it is one thing, but forming a regular habit to inch forward is another. So just want to know a bit more on what are some of the habits you consciously formed over the years.
So yes, actually, you need to follow a regime. Whatever you want to do, you have to follow a regime, and you have to follow a pattern for it to eventually get stronger. You can't just be footloose and do something one day and do something the other. You have to follow a regime. It's so true in exercise, and it's so true in dietary habits, and it's so true in lifestyles, and it's true even for spiritual growth and literary growth. So one thing that I did was, and I consciously followed that I read a lot. And when you are in your own profession, you tend to kind of stick to literature because of circumstances and because what is expected of you in your own fields. So I was a growing army officer. I had demands of the profession. I had to do well on courses. but I made it a point to go much beyond my profession and read fiction, non-fiction, philosophy. And I was constantly at it. So that is one habit that I kept, and I think that has helped me in good stead, because that helped me in, like I said, in clawing back every time. So that kind of triggered my thoughts every time and made me realize what I was missing. So that is half the battle won, when you realize the missing chunks and you see the missing chunks. Some people don't even see the missing chunks. So when you see the missing chunk, that itself is a big victory. So reading did that for me. Traveling did that for me. I was lucky to have traveled quite a bit. And when you travel, even that makes you realize where your life is heading. There are moments of silence that you face when you're traveling alone, which you kind of tend to contemplate on a lot of things. So those silences, those travels, those readings actually helped me. And that was a pattern that has stayed with me through my life. So at times when the noise gets too heady and the crowd gets too boisterous, I want to break free and I want to go into my own zones, which I do. Even in Bombay, I have a place of my own up in the hills where I go. I go there every week and stay there for 3 days all by myself, isolated, even today, just to gather myself, be with myself. And that helps me a lot. It's meditative, it's spiritual, and it shows you a mirror to what you actually want. Tactical pauses, that's important.
Absolutely. Anyone else from the audience would like to say? Sorry, Vinos, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thanks for that. It does connect to a few of my own habits, like reading and traveling. So thank you for sharing.
Great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Vinos. Thanks a lot.
I have a question for Ashutosh.
Hi, Lakshmi.
Am I audible?
Yes, now
Yes.
you're audible. Perfect.
Ashutosh, it's really inspiring to see how you made this transition, and you talked about passion. But you've come a long way, of course, and you've done various things. At any point in time, do you look back and feel that you could have done something differently or chosen something differently from where you are today?
No, that's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, because Mark Twain said that 20 years down the line, you'll probably regret all the things that you haven't done than the things that you have done. So I don't want to regret that. I don't want to regret anything. So I actually end up doing things what I want to do. Yes, there were times in the army when 23 years when I was in the army, probably I was too caught up with a lot of things, and that's probably a time when I didn't get to do a lot of things that I wanted to. But that's okay, because it got compensated with a lot of other excitement and adventure that I was actually leading at that point of time. It was a very heady experience, so that got compensated. But I think I very much have done what I wanted to, and I have no regrets if I die tomorrow.
Or would I put it in a better way and say, do you think there's any one part that you wish that you had done differently, why you might not regret it? Because I mean, I would be absolutely, if I look back at my own life, there are certain things which I feel I could have done differently or made a different choice. So is there anything that you feel that you could have done differently?
Lakshmi, is very funny. When they train you in the army, there is something called the fog of war that they train you for. And then there is a part of military history that you study. That is the battles after they have been. And there is a scenario building and an analysis of what you've done. Fog of war when you don't know anything and it's all blank and you're just getting these inputs and you really don't know what's happening. That's when you need to take the decisions, right? And those decisions are going to carry you through that fog and through that uncertainty and get you on the other side, to the other side of the tunnel. Unfortunately, you don't have the hindsight at that point of time. So yes, there are always 2 roads that you need to take or 3 roads that you need to take. but it's your gut feel end of the day, and the inputs that you get, and your gut feel tells you go for this, and you go for that. It could turn out right, it could turn out wrong. It's only when you come out of the other side of the tunnel and you look back and you say, oh, I could have done this and I could have done that. But that's hindsight. That's not how life is. Life is meant to take decisions at that point of time. Today, when I look back, or when you look back, there are so many things in our youth or in our young days we could have done differently. But we were different people then. We had different inputs then. And I think the decisions we took, and we need to live by those decisions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Great. Let's
We
hear out
can't go
from
back
our-
in time. We can't go back with our wisdom today and take those decisions all over again. It's completely unreal.
Definitely. Is there anyone from audience who would like to share, their passion? I mean, how do they keep up with their passion, right? And their interest in today's scenario. Is there anyone who would like to share that with us?
I have a question, Kamal, for Colonel Ashutosh.
Hey, hi, Sandeep. Hi.
Colonel, first of all, your journey has been spectacular. I love that. Believe me, it's beautiful, encouraging, interesting. I'm of course, ICF certified coach. I love to give back to a lot of people. I have one small query. I talked about passion and passion in profession, whatever you do in life. And I think you have been living with that, whether you've been army or corporate or author, you kept on doing what you love doing. My question here is that how somebody can identify their uniqueness, because for me, I believe, I may be right or wrong, I don't know, but I believe the creator, the super creator has made all of us very unique. And I can justify this scientifically because all of us, our fingerprints are different. There's no duplication of this in this billions of people in the world. If the creator has made us very unique, how one can identify the uniqueness, the power within to do and execute in their day-to-day life decision, and even the major or smaller decision in the life, because that gives the passion to do the best and give the best to the world. How to identify these?
See, I said this earlier too. What happens is, like you rightly said, Sanjeev, and I fully agree with you that all of us are different and no two people are alike. And it happens all the time. Even within the family, you grow up in the same environment, eating the same food, having the same parents, but no two brothers are alike. The brother and sister is not alike. Your children, they're born to the same parents, but when you see them grow up, they grow up differently. Sadhguru said, that you plant two trees, two seeds, you water them in the same plot, in the same space. And yet when they grow differently. One goes to the left, one goes to the right, because the sun has probably been affecting them in a different way, or the wind has been blowing in a little different way. And each seed grows differently. So despite everything that you might do to make them common and make them unique, they make them similar, they will still be different in some way. They might. And so is it true for us. Even as couples, we evolve. When you're married, you're different. When you 20 years later, you look at your spouse differently. So how is it that you identify your passion? You identify your passion by having these pauses. You identify your passion by identifying what excites you. You identify your passion by seeing that what is it that actually drives you. And I personally feel each of us have that calling, and each of us has that path. It's just that a lot of us don't follow that path. We don't have the courage to follow that path. But kabhi to we need to follow that path, right? Whether it is spirituality, whether it is writing, whether it is art, creation, whether it is teaching, whether it is an HR process, whatever excites, whether it is cooking, someday you need to follow that. That is your true calling, not one that you've actually picked up because of survival, not the one that you've actually been picked up because someone has told you to be an engineer because that's the best thing that can happen, give you a lot of money. But those are the gems that you need to pick up. You need to hear your own voice, and then you need to take that up. So you might not take it up. I'm not saying that you make it the center point of your life, but at least identify it and say that this is what I want to do, and devote some part of your life to it. And gradually you will realize that the more you kind of devote your life to it, the more you start enjoying it, and the less you start enjoying the other stuff, and you'll probably go towards that direction eventually. It will happen. But that identification is very important. You just don't need to go with the flow. There's a time when you need to take a tactical pause. And for all of us here, we are around the same age group, given a couple of years up and down the line. We need to take and think for ourselves, what excites me, what is my passion, what really does my soul need?
And also taking a time out for that, because I know today's world, we are so sucked up into, your routines, your work and all, especially in the corporate life, I can see, and many can relate here. But then you have to meticulously take that time and effort to put inside your passion. So I think that also matters a lot into this scenario.
So I started writing, I started serious writing. I did casual writing in the army. I started serious writing when I joined the corporate world. And when I was a CEO, my first book came out when I was a CEO. I started my second book. But I was all the time transiting into an author. And then I resigned after 10 years, and being 4 years as the CEO, I said, I need to branch out more. So I, at the helm when things were going well and I could have continued for another few years as the CEO, I again dropped off the ledge and I jumped off, and I said, I need to start all over again. So here I am all over again. I'm starting, and I'm trying to find my feet again, but it's exciting. It's exciting. And I think all of us need to do that in some way or the other.
That's interesting, Colonel. I think thank you. Basically, what you said is every day is given for living, because one day is written for death. So why don't we live with our passion every day, even if a part of the portion of the day. Thank you. I loved it. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Lovely
Sanjeev.
speaking to you,
Thank you
Sanjeev.
so much.
Yeah, can I share something?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so yeah, I really enjoyed listening to Colonel. And I think everything that you said, I think a lot of it was also jumping out of your comfort zones many, many times, right?
Yes.
And I also liked what you shared when you said you listen to your inner voice, because I think sometimes we become like so clouded by logic. And I think that discovering your passion is not as difficult as we might think, because, we know already, a lot of us already know, like, I'm good at this. Like for me, it's maybe writing. So I love writing, and it's, the moment when you get really caught up in something, I think that's when you realize that could be your passion. So yeah, I think
I'll give you a personal example. And
Yes,
despite
please.
getting everything right, we still tend to go wrong, and we still tend to make mistakes. My own daughter, my wife has been is a microbiologist and all the way a science student, and we forced her into science, saying that no, this is the profession for you, and it bombed, and she was blank. And one day she came home crying, and she said, I just don't want to do this. And I said, and we as a family said, no, we've got you into a good college and we've got everything going for you, and you have to do this. And she just said, I just can't do it. And then there was a big explosion at home, and there's a volcano, and you know how it happens and all that. And then we said, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to be a creative person. So it was diametrically opposite. We were flabbergasted. She said, I want to be an advertising professional. And we had never heard of it. And today she's a creative director, and she's doing extremely well for herself. So, I made the same mistake, having learned so many things about myself. I made the same mistake for my child, and I pushed her into something. But she's today following her passion, and she's doing extremely well. So there are these stumbling, like someone just asked me, I think Lakshmi asked me that, do you regret stuff? But those are the decisions that you take, that you have taken, you can't go back. But yeah, you tend to probably get a little wiser every time you may say you stumble.
True.
Because we won't do the same mistake for our grandchildren.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you
you.
so much. In the interest of time, I would like to see if there are other, audience who would like to talk about their passion and how they are managing along with their, tight schedules and, in their work. So is there anyone who want to share before we move on?
Hi,
How are
Kamal. This
minds
is
going? Okay, go
sure.
ahead.
Please go ahead.
Okay, Amu,
Well,
we'll put Satish as the next then. Rest.
okay.
Time.
Hi, thank you, Colonel, for inspiring us with your story and stories, I would say. For me, I think it's very important that I take a step back into my own world to, pursue things that I like. And travel definitely is one. So if I do that, it's very few handful of people that I would travel with. I prefer to travel solo because that's a time where I'm, reflecting, meditating, trying to just gather myself back. And I think it's always about going up, outside of your comfort zone as well. So in my job in a corporate life, it's extremely stressful, long hours, and talking at all the times and listening to people even more. So this is a time I would get to reflect and think about things that I want to do. And apart from travel, the other place that I go out of my comfort zone is theater. It's very, I would say, very few times that I get to do that, but when I get even a 1 minute chance at getting on stage, I do that. And
Wow.
it gives me an opportunity to see other creative people. It allows me to explore human emotions, what happens outside of a corporate world. And I think these are definitely, like you mentioned earlier, reflective and meditative moments. And no matter whether I have a travel companion, no matter whether I get paid to do what I do, I still make sure that I follow my passion, a few times a year so that it keeps me sane.
Absolutely. And Amu, you are an HR professional, right? And you do theaters and, travel and theater is something that you like. So just a very quick question before we move to Satya, and hear from Satish. Is there any correlation between, an employee's performance against, those who are, pursuing their passion and interest? Because I've read somewhere that whoever is, pursuing their interest and passion, they actually perform better in the organization. Do you see some correlation there, or is it just some kind of study?
Well, I don't do theater as much as I would like to, but the one correlation I see is it helps me become more empathetic at work. I put myself in a different shoes when I'm on stage, right? So I get to
Absolutely.
explore that character, and I get to, look at it from different angles, so that when I'm back at work, when I'm faced with a challenge or a people problem, I would be able to look at it from different angles and definitely in their own shoes as well. But yeah, I think there are a lot of correlations, sometimes not always conscious, but
Does it
you will
help
be
you
able to. Sorry?
Ashutosh, you froze.
really
I think
do
you,
that?
Can you repeat
Hello?
that question? You froze for a while. Can you repeat that question, Ashutosh?
Sorry?
Can you repeat that question?
I said, Esther, Amu, does it help you release your inner blocks and the negativity that sometimes creeps into you? Does it help you release that?
Yes,
Do you
it does.
find it?
Yes, it does. I just go up to the mountains and scream my heart out. So, whatever I wanted to scream before somebody else, I do it at the top of the mountains. Well, it does. It does release a lot of things because you're not thinking from the same, point of view when you're by yourself and you're being reflective. So it definitely helps.
Thank you, Amu. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I think Satish was waiting for, Satish, can you just switch on the
It
camera?
also becomes a very spiritual process without it actually being a spiritual process. It's a very cleansing process actually.
It's very true, and like I said, traveling solo helps because you're really looking at things around you, and you can get lost in your own thoughts. Whereas if you travel with, I can't really travel with my husband or my best friends if I'm doing such a trip. He knows, so he never says, "Why am I not coming along?" He knows.
But yeah, thank you, Amu. Thank you for sharing.
you.
Thanks a lot for being with us. Satish, would you like to share your thoughts as well and your journey, what you like and yeah? Satish, can you
Sure,
hear us?
Kamal. Sure, Kamal. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
All right. First of all, I would say thanks for hosting this wonderful session. A Saturday afternoon could not be more useful than what I'm having now. And hearing about from Colonel Kale and the sort of like audience, like it's really very insightful. And yeah, when it comes to the passion, like yeah, it has been repeated, but I would say that it doesn't necessarily have to be your profession all the time. This is something that could be apart from your profession. And as Colonel Kale rightly said, that you get a true calling, right? So you don't have to discover, like in a way, like you don't have to discover. It's already there within you. It's just that you need to see what it is and what you like doing. For me, like until this pandemic started, actually, I used to sing in bathroom.
Okay.
And when this pandemic started, all right, a lot of online platforms like they picked up, and whether it is like Zoom or whether other e-com learning portals or social platforms, there were a few platforms that I found those are meant for singers. So any people who have that kind of potential singers, they could go join them, and they can sing to the tracks which were already uploaded there. And I happened to join one of the platform, and then I realized that okay, I could sing to the tracks, and then I started enjoying it, and I found that that's really something that I wanted to do repeatedly, week after week. And eventually, like what I did, like I created my own YouTube channel, and every weekend, like I make sure that I have some time for it, and I do sing, and I do publish my songs. And recently, I was approached by academy in Mumbai also. They approached me that like they're saying that I've got a good voice, and if that needs further refinement professionally. So they were keen. They suggested that I should go for some course. So yeah, actually, whatever we do, like on in the weekdays, like in our profession, like that gives a lot of stress and other things, right?
Absolutely.
So we are busy and we are caught up so much into it. And when we know, like we have a passion to follow, right? That's the time when you find yourself, like and you discover yourself that and you enjoy doing it actually. So for me, it was singing that I started, and I'm really loving it. Like I'm doing it on a every week basis, and I've been posting it. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Satish. I think that's very inspiring. And taking the busy time and really meticulously planning your, how do you pursue your passion and how do you keep yourself engaged in that? That's really inspiring. Thank you so much, Satish, for sharing. And we would love to hear you on your YouTube channel. So do share your channel link with us, and we would definitely love to visit that. Yeah.
Sure.
Great. All right. I think in the interest of time, I would love
One
to
thing I would
know-
like to add
Yes.
here, Kamal, like
Yes.
as most of us have said, like whenever we are doing, like Amo said, Colonel Kale as well said, that whenever we want to do, like Amo loves traveling, right? And my family knows that. So whenever you follow some sort of passion, challenging passion, right? It's equally important that like you get support from your family and from your loved ones to follow it, right? So that's equally important. And kudos to them, like for their support.
Absolutely. And like Colonel said that he go into his own zone, and then he said he kind of isolate himself when he's into the creative thinking or when he's writing something. So definitely there is a lot of
Have you
support
joined the
required.
clubhouse? On the clubhouse, there is a lot of singing that is happening these days.
I'm sure Satish is joining
Yeah,
all the different.
so I'm on Smule and Star Maker,
Okay.
and that's what you get to publish your songs, or you can join other singers like who publish their songs for us to join, or you can do solos depending on, and you can do live jams as well if you want to sing live.
Right.
Great. Thank you, Satish. So yes, we talked a lot about profession and interest and how do we hold on to our aspiration. And Ashutosh, you wanted to become a writer, and you have aspired to be a writer, and you have gone through that journey. Of course, it's not easy. It does look like that, okay, you can finish reading a book in 2 days or 3 days, but then putting your heart and soul in it and writing it. It's not something that is easy. I mean, I can't write more than 2 pages, so I definitely can relate to that. So let's look at your the book that you have recently published. I think yesterday you have
Yeah,
it came out, yeah?
it got released yesterday.
Oh wow.
And so like
So
I said,
let's say,
I want to be on the edge of the seat every time. So my
yeah.
first book was a political military thriller, which
Yes.
I wrote because I had the experience of the army, and I wanted to capture the heat and dust of as a young
Yeah.
officer, my days in Kashmir and Pir Panjal and operations and all that. And then I wanted to combine it with the political intrigue because I thought that just military operations would get boring page after page.
Yeah.
So I evolved that book, and there's a lot of philosophy. And it's a little heavy. It's not
No, I have read that. I have read that. It's quite gripping, actually. Your first book was quite gripping as well.
Then
Yeah.
I
So,
wanted to actually challenge myself, because had I come out with a similar, like sometimes authors kind of stick to a particular genre and they don't kind of digress. And then I said, no, I need to push the envelope. So I wrote a historical military thriller with an element of horror in it. Because
yes.
horror is extremely difficult to write.
Yeah.
You need to really keep
Cannot,
the author.
sorry to cut you. Sorry
Sorry?
to cut you, but we don't want to spell the secret right now, because I want to run this video for our audience and let them feel that thrill and horror by themselves, right? With all your due permission. So here it is. So I'm going to run this. That's awesome. And it's very, I would
So,
say, it's very enthralling, right? I mean, it's my question to you, Ashutosh, is why horror? Why you wanted to write horror?
yeah, so
I mean,
like I was saying, what happens is that in a horror, unlike when I was writing a normal book, what happens is that one gets comfortable in a particular kind of writing. And it's very easy to kind of bring out similar genres or write in a similar fashion. I wanted to push myself and get into challenge my own writing and thinking skills and bring out something which is totally different. And that's why I got into this military history campaign, something which is close to me. And I also decided to include horror in it, because to keep a reader riveted from the beginning to the end with horror is very difficult. You need to be really innovative, and you need to really, cull out all your faculties to be able to keep him gripped or her gripped. So I think, yes, this is a really difficult thing to write. Romance is easy, action is easy, political intrigue is easy. But horror is something which really draws upon everything. Otherwise, if you get it bad, it's like a stand-up comedy. If you get it bad, you'll be hooted off the stage,
exactly.
right? So you're actually challenging yourself because you're testing yourself. If you get it bad, you could have a horrible fall.
Yes.
But that's what risk is all about. And I wanted to challenge myself to it. And that's why I picked up horror. So
Great.
yeah, I'm tried my height, and let's see how it goes. And I'm bitten by the bug. My next book also, I'm planning to write another book on horror after this and get into something really different.
I got a good comment on chat I'm reading. Vinod is writing that love the title, could be a good Netflix series. We Vinod works for Netflix. Vinod, can you please, send this
So those
note
are
to
the
your-
pictures of me. Kamal, those are the pictures of me in the rock churches
Yeah.
of Ethiopia.
Mhm.
And that's a priest. And these are some of these churches, you have to use a rope to climb up because they're right on top of the cliffs. So you need to climb up and then get in, and you see those etchings on the wall. They're very, very old. This church was probably over about 700 years old. So it's very interesting to kind of have a research the story there.
So again, you have used, of course, because you were there at that time, right? Yeah, when you were working for the United Nations, right? That's what you said. And you visited those places and that intrigued you and that you have incorporated in your writing. So somehow there's a link. I mean, you kept your, aspiration or passion alive. And even when you were in the difficult situation, you were in, leading the troops, you were really into army, but you still kept that thing alive. So that's really inspiring at this point.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it was also a kind of a release of your steam, because if you're constantly in a particular situation and you're all bottled up, you require a release. And I thought researching for this book was a very, very was a big release for me. It was released of this kind of the pressure cooker kind of a situation in which we were. So it took my mind off the immediate problems for some time, and controlled, soothing nerves. I always realized that once I went out and did some research or did some traveling of my own and came back, I could take better decisions, and I could take more stable decisions. So sometimes what happens is that the noise and the action kind of so weighs on your mind that you really can't think rationally, especially when you are in volatile situations or very sensitive situations. So this kind of stress release, when you get out and come back in, helps you, and you need to do that constantly in your life.
Absolutely. We would definitely love to read this book now that it is already published and we already can get it. So we definitely would read that, and I'm sure that we have a lot of aspiring writers as well on this forum. So anybody has any question for Ashutosh from the audience?
I have a question. I'm Sanjeev here.
Hey, Sanjeev. Yeah.
Tell me.
Colonel Ashutosh, the word horror reminded me of something in the war zone. And I don't know if you're comfortable answering, it's fine. If not, also it's okay.
Can you speak a little louder,
the war
Sanjeev?
which is- can you hear me now? Better?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can.
Okay. So there's a question maybe to the army guys when they're in the field and they see the horror, what is happening right now. It's not a political question. I'm just trying to understand the mindset about Russia being attacking to Ukraine. The reason I think I'm not getting into that, but what happens to the mindset of a person from the armed forces when they see the civilians and they have to see the horror in front of them? They may not have the justification why they're fighting, but they have to fight because of the orders and commands and the job, which I don't know, may be happening with some of the Russian soldiers in the field. If you can explain me about how they handle these horror of conflicting minds when they're in the front.
See, I can tell you about the Indian Army, and you can kind of relate that there. In the Indian Army, we are extremely driven, and we are extremely proud of what we are doing. That's what drives us. The flag, the nation, the patriotism. That's so ingrained. The regimentation, the brotherhood, and you need to identify and you need to be true to the cause. And in our case, we are very true to the cause. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So that we are true to the cause, and that actually drives us. So even if it is a very, very physically demanding situation, a difficult situation, or a situation where mentally you are kind of low, it is this regimentation and it is this spirit that carries you through. And I was there with my troops, and we saw the horrors of war. I saw We had to actually pick up bodies who had been lying affected by chemical warfare, and they had actually shriveled up, and we had to give them burials, because when we reached, we still found places where some of these bodies had not been reclaimed. It was very horrific. uh, so horror, it does affect everyone, and war does affect everyone. And we saw war from a very different. We were a neutral party there. There were two people, two armies who had gone into loggerhead with each other, and we saw it from a very neutral perspective, and it kind of made our skins crawl when we saw things over there. And even now, when we see civilians, see, uh, unfortunately, there would always be collateral damage when you have such big decisions taking place. You cannot have such decisions and uh, such attributes happening without collateral damage. Um, but then I suppose people who take those decisions are doing it at a level where there are national interests at stake, and those national interests have to be borne with certain amount of damage, and that is part of.
I think we lost Colonel Kale on the. Just give him a couple of minutes. I know we are up time. Just one few last words from him before we end the session. So just stay tuned, and so that we can at least say thanks to him when he's back on the online. Just give us a few more minutes. I know sometimes internet can be, you can have bad drop or something. So let's give him a minute or so. So yeah, I think it was a great discussion, and the reason why we were having this particular session today is just to see that how is there any correlation between all three, whether it is profession or whether it is seeking your passion or not. So of course, there is nothing right or wrong. Your passion doesn't necessarily have to define your work. It can be still be pursued. So I'm sure that you all had some key takeaways from that. Welcome back, Ashutosh.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries at all. No worries. Yeah. We were just talking about some key takeaways that yes, today's we had some great learnings, that not necessarily that your passion has to define your work. It can be pursued along with it or outside it. It really depends on your self-discovery. When do you discover yourself and you really can go for it? So that's something that is my key takeaway from this session today. Anyone else has any other questions for Ashutosh before we wrap up? Ashutosh, any final words for our wonderful
No,
audience here
I
today?
just wanted to say that it's been a great morning, and I have really been very excited about this entire interaction once you proposed it, and now that it has actually come to light. And I'd be happy to be in touch with any one of you, anyone who wants to write and wants some kind of help. Please feel free to call me and get in touch with me. Kamal, I think, will share my handle subsequently in a mail, and pick up my book, read it. It's a very different horror. It's not the typical Ramsey movie. So it's got a lot of history. It's got a lot of other things. There are hunts in it, and there is a life which I have recreated of Bombay and of Abyssinia of 1868. So yeah, horror is part of it, but the rest of the story is actually true. So 99% or 98% of the book is actually true. The characters are real. The book is real. The story is real. The loot and the plunder by UK and why they took it and where it is and how there is a fight still on to repatriate and rescue those treasures back to Ethiopia, which actually belong to Ethiopia, which are in the museums of Europe and England, is all real. So it's as close to reality as it can get. And I must tell you that when I was writing this book, and it's very crazy, but I would actually wake up at night and be speaking to characters. And I realized that maybe I'm losing it, but then that was part of the process. And I think it was so heady. So I would speak and I would have characters telling me what they want to be written about them, what they don't want to be written about them.
Yeah, I think that's how you bring the characters to life, right? Even when you're reading a book, you can visualize it like when I read your first book, I could really visualize the things happening around, even though it was a political thriller. I could connect to it, because from our growing years, we have gone through those events. So we can feel that connect, and I'm sure that we would love reading your book. And to our audience, definitely please keep on doing what you like, whether you are in that job or whether you are not. Just identify what you would like to do and hold on to your passion. I think that is what was a key takeaway for me. I'm sure it was for you as well.
So
Right?
my final word would be find the fire in you.
Thank you.
Find the
Ashutosh.
fire in you.
Find the fire.
And like the Dalai Lama said, and I said in the beginning, all of us think we have time.
Yes.
Remember
I think that was it.
That's
Thank
our
you
biggest
so
mistake.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much, Colonel Ashutosh. It was really a privilege talking to you. And thanks to the lovely audience as well. I mean, they took time, on this Saturday afternoon or morning to spend with us. And please connect with us if you want to discuss some more topics or any interesting topics. Please let us know. We will bring it to the forum. And we'll definitely send you the links for Ashutosh, where you can connect with him. And if you have any questions for him, he will be happy to connect with you. Thank you
Bye.
so
Take
much.
care.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so
Right.
much. Bye. Bye.